We have a very special guest. I know you as Jamie. What is this name? Can you explain this to me?
This is I have like Jamie's like the name I go by in public
Okay.
because that's easier for everybody. It's kind of like when I refer to Chester as Chester instead of my father. Um,
So people know
it's
who you're
just
referencing.
yeah, so people know what I'm talking about because there are so many names involved in my story, but or just my life. But I usually change my name. I would say it's like a internal season kind of thing. So it's not always Boku, but right now it is.
I like
And
Boku. What is there a meaning behind it? Is there?
from my understanding, and I could be totally wrong, you do as much research as you can, but sometimes it's just you got to rely on what Google has. But apparently, this is a term from the Japanese language that's kind of like I, but it's kind of more like like a master bringing themselves down to like a servant's position,
Oh,
or like going from like in my mind, I see it as like a more isolated personal scholarly pursuit, I guess, and taking myself back down to like uh, what you might call like layman's terms.
yeah.
So
That's deep.
when
Kind
I
of like
bring myself
one
to
of
people,
many.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Just we're all on the same level. Do you
yeah.
like Japanese culture in general or have any Japanese tattoos?
I think I do. I think I like the culture. I've always been surrounded by Japanese artists, and I think that's just a product of, or I guess a byproduct of me growing up on PlayStation.
Yeah.
Which sounds kind of strange maybe, but there's a lot of like JRPGs and things like that that came out. I'm a big Kingdom Hearts fan. That's Japanese. Things like that. So it I don't know. I feel like I've always kind of been drawn to the culture, but then as I got older, one of my favorite authors of all time is Haruki Murakami, and he's written stuff like Kafka on the Shore, The Wind Up Bird Chronicles, 1Q, 8-4. It's just like really cool. Um, what do they call it? Like magical realism is what he does.
Oh, okay.
So it's like you're in normal life, but then he finds a way to make it super magical without. It's not like Ghibli stuff. If you ever watch like anime,
Yeah.
Howl's Moving Castle, stuff like that. In my opinion, this is like his stuff is it just is way harder than that.
I've always been
Because
fascinated by the fashion in Japanese culture and how
yeah,
forward they are. They're just always like 2 steps ahead of America, and yeah, anime is taken over as far as
I
popularity wise.
I love how I think anime artists have been able to bring their uh, mundanity of life to their art. Because for me, I'm like a huge Hunter x Hunter fan as well. If you've ever seen that.
I
And the more I
haven't.
learn about it, the more I'm like, damn, this guy just like put his whole life into this mythological context. Um, and I love stuff like that. I think I love the artistic propensity for like magical realism, but in such like a serious way. Like they're never nobody ever laughs when they pull out demons or it's
Yeah,
always very
yeah.
serious. I think I've always just been drawn to that, and so in many different ways. I think the older I get, the more nuanced my interaction becomes with stuff like that. But I could also be wrong about all of that. I am viewing all of it through an American lens,
That's
and
true, right? Us
yeah.
Americans, we're on the bottom of the barrel. You look artsy. I know obviously you come from a musical, artsy father. What do
Yeah.
you do? Like, what are your hobbies and what do you do that's your creative outlet?
I have to think about that, I guess, because
Do you sing at all?
I do. I'm a musical person. I'm an art. I think in my art, I just kind of go wherever the art calls. Like, because I when I was younger, I started out with writing. I really liked writing, but then I realized I kind of didn't have anything to say. As a kid, it was like, oh, I could. I like, for example, I loved the Percy Jackson series as a kid.
Mm,
But when I ended up writing, I would just write. It ended up coming out like just almost straight Percy Jackson fanfic. It's
yeah.
like you try to come out with something original, or like, oh, maybe this is just a thought in my head I'm putting on paper, but really it's just everything that you've read or digested as a child up to that point. So you're literally just regurgitating Disney movies without knowing it, stuff like that. And I kind of realized that early on. I was like, oh. I'm not writing anything that's cool. Like this is all stuff that exists. I would like for it to not be true, but it is true. And then I kind of went to visual art, but I'm left-handed, so I hated it because I just smear everything all the
Oh,
time.
weird. I didn't even think about
Yeah.
that. So when
Yeah,
you're
when you're like,
left-handed,
because
it's
you kind of
harder?
drag. Yeah, you
Okay.
kind of drag. So like with the right hand, you kind of have this like elevated, your this part of your hands up. You can write like this. But like with your left hand, your hand is kind of tilted down on the other side because it's opposite orientation. So when I started doing visual art, I was into anime, well, kind of like Avatar: The Last Airbender, stuff like that. I really wanted to be an animator, and but I gave up so fast because when I actually started taking classes about it, in high school, I tried to get a focus on that. All the drawing on canvas and paper just smeared. I always had like that dark pencil hand, and I was just like, I can't do this. It's driving me
Imprint.
crazy.
Well,
Yeah.
I think it's writing's one of those things you might want to revisit later because I think as we age, we
Yeah.
get more of our personal life experience and then it's easier to take from that and write. But it's normal for everyone to get influenced by their favorite movie or their favorite
Yeah,
author and then
absolutely.
take bits and pieces that we love. Musicians do it all the time. They grew up listening
Mhm.
to maybe 70s or 80s bands, and you could hear some of the tempo or some of the lyrics or the
Mhm.
different transitions in the new song. I think that's flattery as long as it's not complete plagiarism and copy. It's flattery to take from an artist that you love and recreate your own magic.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually, so after that, I became like invested in the piano. I was just like, because my dad was a musician, and for me there was always kind of a level of what do you call it? Like a competition, I guess. It's competition. Yeah. I don't like to think of that word in
Or like
terms of
you
me and my
definitely
father, but
probably looked up to him. I mean, your dad's a rock
yeah.
star that's uber talented, one of the best singers of our time.
Oh, one
So
of the best, yeah.
wouldn't you want to be like your father? I think that's a natural instinct.
Well, I think that was a question. It's like, do I want to do that? I was in like two bands in high school and we never did anything. And I think part of that was because I didn't know what to talk about because I was like, oh, my little kid just came in. He's getting water, but
How I got two
my
of them.
I just got him yesterday and my cat's still getting used to him. She's watching. She's not hissing, but if she starts hissing, I might have to intervene.
Mine
But
hides, well, especially with my younger son. She's like, "Oh, he's in the room. I'm out."
doing great. Yeah. You hear?
Yeah, yeah, mine are at school right now. That's why I can do the podcast safely. If not, they're like, "What's up? Can we say hi?"
You're
That's
good. Do I
cute.
need to kick him out? I can kick him out. But
Oh, no, not at all. How old is he?
he's running. Like 4 months. So
Oh.
she just turned like 2, and he's like 4 months,
Oh.
and she's just kind of like she hasn't had a cat in the house like hers for like a year. So she's just very used to being the only child.
Yeah, I
And he also
understand that.
smells weird because he came from this store, which she hates because she was adopted as well. So
Oh, wow.
we adopted them through the same agency. So I think she's having flashbacks, She's like,
She's like, "What the
don't take me
heck?"
back there. Why do you
Yeah.
smell like that?
Yeah. Well, man, you're in the thick of it, so good luck. Mine are 6 and 10, so they're off,
Oh,
doing
they're
their thing.
older.
It's yeah, it's
Yeah.
exhausting though, parenting at all ages for sure.
Parenting
It's a
is
lot.
hard. Yeah, I made sure we had a cat before, but we had to give him up when we got this one over here. Um, he just, with all the stuff that I'm currently going through with this whole Lincoln Park family situation, it's just I could not actually give him what he needed, but he was such a sweetheart. So I
Yeah, so that's
had
what
to give
there's
him.
been so many articles obviously coming up on my feed
Yeah.
24/7, and I'm like, I had missed I had it was hard for me to describe how I felt about it at first. We did a podcast about it. Um,
Okay.
I was confused, right? Like I said, I've had Emily Armstrong on the old station 10 years ago. She didn't answer a lot
Hmm.
of my questions. It was like very one word answers. I was shocked they were replacing your father and no
Yeah.
one can replace him. And I was then shocked they didn't change the name because it's a completely different band. But yeah, what are
Yeah.
your feelings and how has this all unfolded for you?
Well, I think that's a good segue back to the art. What do you do for fun comment or question? Because, I think, where we ended on that was it's okay to be influenced or want to appear as influenced by and appear as your inspirations, right?
Yeah.
When I was younger, I actually decided very, very seriously, like, I want to be in the music industry, but away from Chester. How do you do that? And I was like, well, I don't want
You
to
guys look
compete as a
alike. You get that, right?
thank you.
I
I
mean,
get that. I know.
twinsies,
I
like that.
literally, anytime anybody says something otherwise, I laugh. I'm like, you're ridiculous.
Yeah. I don't know how you could break away just because he's so well known and amazing and you guys look like
That's
twins.
that was really hard because, you know, as a
Yeah.
child, you realize how many ceilings your father actually broke.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're like, "Wait, that's not normal." And then you're like, "Wait, but they're saying it is because
Yeah.
he's, you know, they're saying it's normal because that's what Chester would do." And then it's like, okay. And then, you know, one of the biggest challenges I've ever had is when getting people to recognize me as not being Chester, but being like equally as like talented or cool as him. You know, we're not the same person, but we do have our own things we bring to the table in terms of like doers or actors in reality. And so when it came to art, I was like, you know, I'm going to choose to be in film and television so I can be in like a parallel industry that might sometimes intersect. And that's kind of what brought me back, like you said, later in life to being a writer. Cause I was like, oh, wait, I can, you know, as I started like writing scores for student films and writing scores for my own scripts, it was like, wait, I like writing and I think I could do this better. Then I became a director. So it's like, I kind of, in terms of doing, you know, in terms of what I do for fun, I kind of do whatever I'm pulled to, like mentally, whatever best expresses that energy that I'm dealing with at the time. So I kind of do everything. I now I'm a painter. Now I'm a drawer. Now I, you know, I make like metaphysical objects. I do music. I'm a singer. I'm a guitar player, a producer, like everything. So I kind of became like, you know, somebody brought it up. I used to call myself the human equivalent of a Swiss Army knife. And it was more of a
You
joke
can
than
pull out
anything.
all different
Yeah,
things
but I
and
feel
yeah.
like that's real now. Like I really am like that, you know. And so when it comes back to Lincoln Park and my thoughts on it, it was very shocking for me to see all of that as well, because, you know, and I've seen some people say like, well, they don't owe you anything. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. I'm not saying anybody owes me anything. I'm just saying it would have been nice to have been warned. It would have been nice to have been given any kind of heads
You
up
weren't
that there was
warned.
no,
You didn't get a
no.
call, an email from Mike or anything?
Everything that you went through was what I went through.
I'm so sorry.
And it was super
That's
weird
really rude. That's just disrespectful to you and your family.
on a number of levels, especially since I do quote have beef with the band and it was before this moment by years, you know. I think at this point I have to tell people like I've really just been at the end of my rope with every single person in this situation. Uh Whether you know the name or not, it's because like I've spent years trying to make sense of all of this. I've spent years trying to mend certain relationships, and to see that this was Mike's response, Brad's response, Dave and Joe's response to what they know I've been going through on some level, they all know, is very strange. So, you know, you have like the personal element and then you have the normal everyday, you know, person's experience. That element's part of my life too, because I am just a normal person like anybody else. And so I was shocked and I was confused. You know, there's something about anticipating the potential for something to happen, and then there's
Mm.
something about witnessing the way that it is actualized. And I think, you know, before I could say anything negative about the band, I don't mind that they moved forward. I really just mind how it's kind of unfolded from its origin, because there's a lot to say about the Emily situation. There's a lot to say about the Chester situation. There's a lot to say about just the way the band has now like arranged itself. Like there was a lot at once. Like it's only been 28 days now.
Wow. I feel like it's been
Hasn't even
longer.
been 30, because it was like August 30th. So we're coming up on like a month. We're not even there yet. And
Wow.
they're already on the world tour. They're already across the planet. They're already doing League of Legends. Like it's pretty wild how fast they came in.
I just feel like there was rumors circulating a little bit
Hmm.
prior that Derek from Sum 41 or Corey from Slipknot
Yeah.
may take over. That wouldn't be too surprising. But when I heard Dead Sarah, I got really shocked. That was a piece of the pie. And then the second piece of the pie was finding out that she represented Danny from that 70s show in a rape case and that she's a
Yeah.
Scientologist. And I'm just like, what a strange, and everyone can background check anyone with the internet easily nowadays. I'm shocked the band didn't further look into what potentially this could get the band's name roped in with and go, this isn't a good PR move, even if this person has a
Oh, this
talented
is the
voice.
best PR move. This is the best PR move for
You're
them. Of
right.
course it is.
You're right. It's hot.
Well,
You're right.
and to the Scientologist church is, it's a celebrity cult. They use celebrity for this. This is what they do. But also, it's really interesting because when Chester died, I'll use his name because even though he's
Yeah.
dad to me, it's easier to say people's names. When Chester died, his death was spun out into a literal international mental health movement.
It started it
And
in my generation. Like, we started talking about mental health more from your dad and realized we all
mhm,
struggle and go through hard times and things like that, and it put it in the forefront that a lot of us hide it, and you have
yeah.
no idea what someone's going
Well,
through.
and that's part of what I've been advocating for is like, I don't mind that Linkin Park reinvented itself. What I mind is how they did it. And, to put someone, okay, fine, you're not replacing Chester. Okay, whatever. You can go ahead and try to spin that. That's fine. But the reality is that there is a new vocalist. And so you are replacing Chester. There's been no acknowledgement of him, the impact he had on the music, the impact on the fan base that he had. Because really, Linkin Park's fan base is split into two kind of bigger groups. There's one side, which is like this radicalized, I don't give a fuck about anything vibe. Like they call themselves soldiers. They're very headstrong. They're aggressive in everything they do. They don't care about mental health. They don't care about family. They don't care about really anything. It's very much so just like, the people who hear numb and then just start moshing. And you're just like, wait, that was like weird. You're okay with slipping from like where you are now straight back into being 12 years old again, and
Yeah.
allowing yourself to have those, more aggressive interactions, which is cool. And I understand that, but that's just like maybe more what you would get from like a standard fan base, like just people who do things to do things. They're like, oh, that's the band. I'll buy anything they do. I'm not really looking at it. And then you have the other side of the fan base, which they've, in my experience, they've been like it, that side of it, the one I just described is more of like the Mike side, more of like the Brad, Dave, Joe side. And then this side over here is like the heart of the fan base, which is like the people who were affected by the music because of the music, the people who use that as a tool for their own self-expression, their own communication of their emotions, their own understanding of self over time. Like how many people who hear Linkin Park are like, no, it's Chester, like, oh no,
I think
that the
your
way
dad
he's
is Lincoln Park. Chester is Lincoln Park
right. Because,
to
well, I
me.
mean, when
That's
it
my
comes down
opinion.
to music, it's music. Yeah, it's music is music, but really it's what you can bring to the table through the music. And Chester was, like you said, your generation, the generation around my father, like just before, just after, those were kids who were kind of fed up. I kind of see the 90s as being like, and maybe Mike in the group, because they're a year younger, they just missed this or something. Maybe it's because they're from Calabasas, Malibu area. Who knows? But Chester came from the streets of Phoenix, just like I did, and that's rough. That's a rough place. That's not a place you go to if you're faint of heart.
Yeah,
Like
it's not a
Chester was in a
privileged upbringing.
not at all. And Chester, his father was a cop, his mom was a nurse. He was going through some very dark moments in history as a participant, a person living in that circumstance, in that context. But he wasn't the only one. And that's the biggest part of the, culture was like, we can talk about Nirvana, like Kurt Cobain and that whole situation. Like that kind of music was just, it was designed by the artist. Like listen to any Grey Days, listen to Jeff Buckley, like do it. Like you'll hear people being extremely vulnerable.
Yeah, and
And that's
they
what the
had
whole point was.
a raw childhood and a lot of wild experiences, and you can hear the grit almost in Kurt
Yeah.
Cobain's voice, in your father's voice of,
Yeah.
wow, they've really experienced life. And I saw your dad live a lot of times in the late 90s, early 2000s. And that's
Wow.
how I
That's
connected to
really
Lincoln.
cool.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
how I connected to the band, was your dad singing, and how the emotions coming out of his
Yeah.
voice is what drew me into the band. So I don't know, like, your opinion matters, I think, the most in your family about the change up, but it really hurts my feelings that they didn't A, contact you first to let you guys know this is gonna happen, and then
Yeah.
B, all the fans kind of go towards you with love and respect, going, "Are you guys okay? What
Oh,
are your
yeah. That
thoughts?"
didn't
And I
happen.
wanna, be soft with those thoughts, you know? Like, there's been some
Yeah.
weird mixed message, like, rude people
Well,
out there.
I didn't know that Instagram was like the haven, the number one haven for like toxic like male energy. I
Yeah.
didn't know that. And I've been there for 10 years. So, but I've also been surrounded in that same energy. So for me, it's been really interesting to watch how it's the private um, Instagram accounts who are male facing that have the most heinous vile shit to say to someone.
And they'll hide. They're trolls
They,
hiding, you
they
know?
hide behind different profiles. They have burner accounts. It's really weird. They changed their profile pic in case you forget the handle. You might not remember it's the same person, but they're like brutal. You know, I've had death threats. I've had the same stuff that happened when Chester died is happening. You know, I'm getting
I'm
people
so
coming up like,
sorry.
if he didn't want to be replaced, then he shouldn't have died. He shouldn't have done what he did. It's like,
That
whoa,
is
wait, yeah.
so
People coming up
horrific
like,
and
Jamie, you should kill
disgusting.
yourself. It's like, why are you saying that? I'm literally just posting articles about like the evidence I'm finding in my investigation. You know, I'm just talking about, you know, the experiences I've had in life. Like, you don't have to be here. Nobody's forcing
These
you to
people should be ashamed of
interact.
themselves, and you should never write or spread anything negative. If you don't
Yeah.
agree, I say keep scrolling, but if you have something
Yeah.
positive to say, I'll add a fire emoji or whatever to something. But I think it's disgusting that anyone would put you down for
Yeah.
voicing the opinion
It's
of
so
a
weird.
family member and something you're involved with.
And they don't care.
Extremely.
They don't care
Yeah.
about that. Like, there are people on my and I'm getting back to the, you know, being influenced by your favorites and then bringing that to the table, because I there's a lot to say, I think, about the way that the band and its newer members are talking about being influenced. And but they're doing it, in my opinion, they do it in such a way that they kind of release themselves from any responsibility they might have as artists, assimilating what my father brought to the, I said both at the same time. My father brought to the table.
You combined them, yeah.
Combine them. I almost said
Yeah.
brother.
Yeah. Well, you guys
My
look like
brother
you
dad.
almost could be brothers.
Well, we actually might be. So
Shut up.
there's like a whole paternity dispute that's just so stupid. But it's my family is truly a Jerry Springer
Hey, mine too. Mine too, dude.
fever dream.
Yeah, it keeps life
But yeah,
exciting, you know, that
it does.
it's
It
never a
certainly
dull moment.
does.
I have animals. I hang out with my animals because my family's all batshit crazy, so
Yeah,
it's
I have two fur babies because honestly, that would be a better option than having a kid right now.
yeah.
Just because of the world. But I, you know, I love kids, and I'm like, dude, I don't even want you to be here,
I know
Firefly.
it's
This world is crazy, but you're here. So
yeah. Well, hang in there. I know it's easier said than done to try not to take the online negativity and haters seriously. I deal with it too. I did a performance recently and I got a lot of backlash for it and I had to block a lot of people.
a
And so
performance.
I did a burlesque performance that I got
Oh,
hired
awesome.
for. Thank you. But I didn't know when I got hired for it that it was all ages. That I didn't know. And so I just came back. Yeah.
Oh.
So I'm
What's
backstage.
an all ages burlesque
I don't
show?
know. I've been hired and done a bunch of them, but they're always been 18 and over, 21 and over. I'm glad you're
Uh,
laughing. So I don't see the audience, right? When I'm backstage. I do it and there's
okay.
kids in the audience and I don't know it. So I
Uh-huh.
get, all this backlash and people are coming
Yeah.
for me. I'm talking like hundreds and I'm not a well-known person.
Weird.
So it's just a lot. And I first addressed it like my bad. And
Okay.
then nobody cared. And so I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna give up. I'm gonna just block and not respond to any of this. Cause even if you say
That's kind of
sorry,
where
I feel
I'm
like,
at.
yeah, they don't stop. They don't give up.
Stop it.
And so I feel you. I think it can be easier said than done, like I said, to say ignore the drama and the BS,
Yeah.
but it still can hurt you. It still can
It's
affect you. You're a
well,
human.
yeah, it's really tough, like I already have family challenges, that's kind of the joke is that, a lot of people come up and they're like, you're why are you doing this? This is a disgrace or whatever. And then I'm like, well, I'm the only one out here talking about this consistently. I'm the only one archiving everything that I'm saying so that there's no confusion about what I was saying at a time, even though I'm going to start abridging my live streams, which are pretty long. Just because I know it's easier for some people to access if it's shorter, but also I know that I do talk in circles sometimes because I like to hit things multiple times. So there are probably whole sections of videos I could trim down, but I, how do I say it? Like I spend time with my community. I put a lot of effort into that. I don't have the family that people think I do, but that's also not their fault for thinking that. And I understand. Like, I feel like a lot of people come to my side of my neck of the woods, and then they're like, they see everything that what they see is only stuff that contradicts what they know about Chester and the situation because that's what they were told, right? Like, again, we tie in the mental health movement, like the entire public was made to think that we're all family and super close and treat each other a certain way. But here I am, and people have seen how the band has treated me. They've seen how the family has treated me. And I think the initial response sometimes is like, it's not even hate. Like, I feel like sometimes when people come up, they're like, F you, and you should do this to yourself, or
To your
who do you,
face?
well, as much as you can, like on the internet.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
like, that's the most verbal part because those people will leave comments. The
Yeah.
people who genuinely care send DMs.
Yeah,
So
that's
they'll
weird.
communicate with me instead of pretend to communicate. And then a lot of those people will be on private profiles. So I can't even leave comments. They can say whatever they want, but I can't respond. So
Yeah.
it's really funny to me that that happens. But then something I've realized over the last about a year or two is as I become progressively more vocal about my stance and more, bold in my truth, is that people actually have like a victim's response to it, like in the most like heartfelt way. I'm saying that because it seems like a lot of people come in and then they hear something or see something that can't exist in the world that they've allowed themselves to rely on. And then they're like
Mm.
really fucking mean about it.
Yeah.
Some people will come up and say that to me. And I know they're coming from a place of like, I've known these people for 20 years. I've looked up to Mike in some of my most trying, mental health episodes. And I've trusted him. And now you're saying all this stuff that clearly paints a picture that it's not to be trusted. And
That's
why?
really hard when you let
And
your
then they're
guard
like,
down and trust
no,
someone.
no, don't tell me that. I don't believe it. I won't believe it. It's like when you find out that somebody's been doing something to someone that you care about for like 10 years behind closed doors and you never knew. And then you can't, it's
Yeah.
like you have a hard time accepting it. And I feel like sometimes that's what's going on. More often than not, maybe that's what's going on because there are a lot of people who say crazy stuff. Like there are people who will watch like 6-hour live streams where I'm just chilling with the community because that's what I do. I just turn it on. I'll do
Where do
my
you go
meditation.
live?
YouTube.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I've been going
I
live for
don't
like 2 months
Dude,
now.
I didn't even know that, but I never
4
look
months
on
now.
YouTube. I only look on TikTok and Instagram for lives,
Yeah.
or I'll be on my life. I have like 3 jobs and kids, so it's like
Yeah.
it's
I hear that.
it's fucking to find time to even listen to music nowadays is rough
Yeah,
sauce.
being here is a feat.
No, I'm stoked. Obviously, I'm stoked
Yeah.
to meet with you. Is mental health something even prior to all these haters and stuff, anything that you struggled with in your life?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, that's all my art's based around. There are people who've come up to me and they're like, "I followed you for years. I don't know what happened. You're all middle fingers and fire, and you're just cussing everybody out." And I'm like, "Well, no, not really.
Awakening. You had an
It's not
awakening.
really. Yeah. There's most of it's an awakening because in the sense of like I always knew I was like this, but I was made to be something else. So it's like a matter of like growing older and developing the means to do the things that you need to do or be the way you need to be. And that's really hard. especially in today's environment, in terms of housing and schooling and politics and economy. The social pool is hard to deal with, dealing with people you don't know, or, learning, how to interact with people in today's society, at least for kids younger than me and younger. It's like, it's really hard. You don't know who you're ever talking to. You don't know if you're ever on the same page. You don't ever, you're kind of like almost violently divided on like language and behavior and interest. And it's really challenging to be alive right now. And so mental health has always been a part of my challenge. I've always been a charitable person. I've always, wanted just to be there. I just wanted to create community and develop art and conversation that is indicative of these challenges and moves towards a solution. It's all solution based. But in the beginning, it was really hard for that, because I think when Chester died, a lot of people were interested in me specifically because I was Chester's kid, not because I had anything valuable to say. And I think that's been challenging. I did my short film, A Chant, which was meant to be a mental health resource. I had that script verified by mental health professionals so that I could make sure I wasn't exploiting mental illness in order to make art. I didn't want to make like the number 21 where it's just
Yeah.
like, it's not really a serious take on anything, but it kind of tries to be. I wanted it to be an actual serious take. And that was an adaptation of a Stephen King poem. But, I've also been writing like concert music, like experimental concert music, for over a decade now. I've had to step away in some ways, but I'm just like a social engineer. I think I feel like I see big problems and want to handle them because I feel like I have a good grasp on both sides. Like, I'm a celebrity kid, but I'm also just from Phoenix. I'm just a kid from Phoenix who asked about their dad one day, So I
Yeah.
have this like layman in me, but I also know what that world looks like, the other side of it, the apex of that American dream. And so I'm on like the bottom of the hill and the top of the hill at the same time. And I feel like, when I was a firefighter, I spoke out about the challenges that the mental health community faces in that specific context. I've made film festivals. Specifically, I had this cool project for a while where I curated a film festival, and it unfortunately never got off the ground. But I had 5 or 6 films, everything from like big studio films like Only the Brave with Josh Brolin and Miles Teller and Jennifer Connelly and all these really big names, to really small stuff that is just as big. There's a guy named Coeteesca who is an actor, but he's also an activist. He's a former gang member who realized he kind of wanted to do something else. And then he was like, wait, all of my experience gives me panic and anxiety, and I need to figure out why I'm feeling that way. And it led him towards this enlightenment. He was such a cool guy to talk to at the time. And, I was just trying to bridge the gap between all things. And
Yeah.
basically I would show the films, and then I would have the producers on a panel, and they would talk about the responsibility and the challenge of bringing these mental health conversations to the table, because Only the Brave is about actually an event that happened here in Prescott in Arizona. I'm not in Prescott, but Prescott's close, where 19 wildland firefighters burned to death, and they all knew each other. My really good friend, Alan Sinclair, was training to become what he would eventually be, which was the FMO of the Southwest region. He's how I became a wildland firefighter for the time that I did. He was, and this is his story, so I won't go too far into it, but it is really important to help understand the scope of the problem that we were talking about. He was training to become a wildland firefighter in a command position, and he went to that fire, the Yarnell fire, and they had him. They held him back at a motel because they were like, this is becoming a complex situation. We want to handle it. And then the next call he got was, hey, we need you to come identify these bodies. And they were all his friends.
I
And so
remember reading about that.
he lost 19 friends. There was one survivor, Brendan McDonough, who's played by Miles Teller in the movie. And so I was going to have, that production unit maybe with like Josh Brolin and a couple of other people on stage talk about that, have Brendan McDonough himself on stage, the surviving scout, have, you know, Alan up there speaking about wildland forestry and wildland firefighting. And then on the other side, it was going to be like Cueteesca from the streets of, you know, California, like SoCal, like what I would imagine, like, you know, Compton energy, you know, just like
Yeah.
have him talk about his experience and how he overcame that and how he's channeling that into viable art. And, you know, his short film, which we were using at the time, was just so beautiful. And so there were a couple of people in the middle. And so that was all mental health based. You'll never see it on my resume. You'll never see it. Well, you might see it in the future on my resume, but right now it's not. It's just one of those things that was almost there. It was like days away from being a reality, and then it just wasn't viable anymore.
There's so many projects that have almost taken off that I've been involved with. I was in LA for years, and so that's really common to where it's neat though
Yeah.
that you have a platform and that you're using it in a positive manner to create art and even talk about mental health. And you got to remind yourself you are valuable. You're your own
Yeah.
individual outside of your dad, and you're
Yeah.
great. You're smart. You're doing a lot of
Thank you.
positive things. So
I
keep
appreciate
that up.
that.
No, definitely.
I
Like you got to
will.
give and positive talks in the morning. That's really
Yeah.
important. I think
Yeah.
like
This is a
wake
good
up in
pep
the
talk.
mirror. Yeah. Do the look in the mirror and be like, I am smart. I'm beautiful. I'm
I
cool.
am.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You
I
got to
am. And
say
so
that.
all of you. And that's why I do what I do. And yeah,
Yeah.
so I would say, you know, does mental health play a factor in anything that I do? It's like, yeah, all I've been trying to do since I was an adult the last 7 years is create, you know, a safe space for those meaningful conversations and those expressions. And so, you know, really the Picture Pieces archive, which is what I call my social media now, it's what it was always supposed to be, but what I now have the power to stand in. So, you know, it's been a process of healing and expanding and experimenting, and we're pretty close to the finished product. It takes a lot of work. You know, I'm a one man team, but I dedicate myself to this. You know, I'm circling back to the inspiration uh, conversation. I swear, because you
I'm
know,
following you. I'm following.
I myself find the more that I become myself, the more as an artist I become individuated, the more I actually pull in information, experience from other art. Like I can't really call myself a musician if I don't acknowledge that Alex Turner of the Arctic Monkey or of Arctic Monkeys, it's never it's Arctic Monkeys. You know, Chester Bennington of Linkin Park, you know, Willow of Willow. Like I see myself in these people. So like, how could I not, if I saw myself in these people and then I'm making music or art that is based out of that, you know, rooted in that energy, then
You're
how can
meditating
I
now.
deny it? You know? So I like
Yeah.
to make art that's as referential and as simultaneously as referential and as, or intertextual and isolated as possible. So, you know, that kind of brings me back to Linkin Park, because really they exist. They're a coin with two faces. They have the mental health aspect that Chester brought to the table, because it's not Linkin Park that did that. That was Chester. And then it's the actual performance and the art itself. So there's the expression and then there's the art. And I feel like those are two different things, because in reality, um, you know, they ended on the note of, we are respecting the mental health conversation around this. Chester means this much to us. And yet we didn't get any of that this time around. None. We didn't get anything. I was watching post-traumatic footage from the tour that Mike put on in 2018, where he's literally giving speeches about Chester and missing him and how much it means. And, you know, he's doing the thing that's expected of him. And then 7 years on, you know, they're doing the one interview it matters to say something about that. And they don't say anything about it. They almost like coach Emily and Colin into responses. And this is that Zane Lowe interview they did after the LPU showcase.
Yeah.
And it was just so weird to watch that and be like, so you're not going to talk about Chester at all. It's not that you have to make the whole thing about him. It's just, you got to acknowledge he was here. Especially if you're going to go around and sing all of their songs. That doesn't
You know
make
what?
any sense.
You're just bringing up a great point that I didn't think about. Like, at least if you are replacing him, what about a giant screen with him behind them? What about a
Yeah.
talk about mental health or clips of him talking about it prior to the show? Like some kind of
Mhm.
respectful manner of, hey, this was his project that he started. We're going to pay
Yeah. I thought
homage
they
to
were gonna do
him.
that.
Yeah.
Honestly, I was waiting because I was joking around, Linkin Park has a history of being involved in film. And so I thought, okay, well, if they had a history with Transformers, they did something like The Mall, then, where they score the movie as a group, then like maybe what they're going to do is their initial drop on social media was be part of something. That was their tagline. So, right. Did you
Mm.
see that? It was like August
Yeah.
30th, they dropped that.
But now that we know what that meant, it sounds strange, right? It's
It
like, no,
sounds
I
really
don't want to
strange
be part of
because
being
I
mean
thought,
and
well, I just thought that it was gonna be like, be part of something, like, let's get back to the mental health conversation. A lot of people need help right now. They need that support. Let's
yeah.
bring that back with art, like, maybe I thought that this would have just been, like, the perfect rollout. They drop it because here's the thing, if you don't do it this way or some way like this, then it just kind of feels like you were just teasing everybody about their emotions with the situation, trying to get the most you could get out of the emotional energy left in the situation.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people were startled and frustrated by the 100-hour timer that went all the way down and all the way back up. They were
Yeah.
even more frustrated with the LPU showcase. And like, I thought, this was literally my theory. I was like, okay, so, they have a history of teaming up with people to talk about mental health. Maybe they'll do a documentary about Chester, some kind of featurette about him and the band, because
Yeah, that'd be a great
they have
idea.
the say all. They get to say, we are making this Linkin Park documentary. They could have done that. They were releasing greatest hits. They were doing the box sets. They were kind of, cultivating this nostalgic energy. Not kind of. They were absolutely cultivating this nostalgic energy. And so I thought that's what they were going to do, because they said they were looking back in their archive. They said they were looking back at their past and they were learning from the past. And so I thought it would be really cool if, they did this whole thing where they did the timer, they gave the little hidden messages about the show, and then they, maybe um, maybe they did some songs, like maybe they released like One More Light, the B-sides that they talked about all those years ago, because they said they almost had a whole separate album for One
Wow.
More Light. And I thought, well, that'd be cool if they were like reworking that, then they applied it to like a Chester Bennington documentary. We get that second version of One More Light. That would be interesting. And then I can hear the kitten screaming. And then
Oh, I can't.
he, just like, maybe then we could have closure. Like, how cool would that be if the band did official Linkin Park documentary?
Yeah.
And then we did a tribute to Chester. We acknowledged him entirely and said, you know what? We're going on the reunion tour now. It's been 7 years. We've looked at all of this. We've really dived deep into ourselves, and we want to celebrate Chester before we move on. We want to
Yeah.
do that. They didn't do that at all. It was a 60-minute show, and they introduced a new guitarist, vocalist, drummer.
Drummer.
They
Yeah.
introduced a new album, a new single, a new merch line, a new tour. Well, I say tour already, but
It was a
yeah,
slap
it was
in
a
the
lot at
face, I feel
once.
like, for his family and the pure Chester fans. I feel like it was just really rude. It
Yeah,
was
I feel like that
tasteless.
was, yeah. And then at that point, you have to say like, okay, then it wasn't about that. So this is them toying with the emotion. This is them playing with the audience, because it's no longer a, well, we want to be respectful. This is what we want to be respectful about. It's we want to move forward. We're just going to do that. You have to get with it. And
Yeah.
that's different. And I thought that would have just been so wholesome. But, I often expect bigger things from people because I'm an optimist. And
Yeah. My
it's
glass
been
is half
clear,
full too, and people don't
you
always think
know.
like that, they're
Well, they don't. And then I started doing my research as I'm following this in real time. I've been reporting on it for the last 30 days or almost 30 days now. Um, and so I've gotten a lot of hate for it because they're like, you're just talking bad on the band. I'm like, no, guys, this was my family.
yeah.
Like, these are my uncles we're talking about. We're not
This is
talking about Linkin
directly
Park.
affects you. And
I used to
you've
tour with
never
these
said
guys.
anything really rude or mean. You're just shocked and you're just stating the facts of how this has been presented and played out.
And it becomes more and more aggressive as it goes on, because it's that much more offensive the longer it goes on the way it goes on. I
Weird.
mean, you have a guy who allegedly died by suicide in your band, and then you replace him with a vocalist who, one, can't match his energy. I've seen that in the shows, and that's one of the things I was going to say about inspiration, but I'll get back to it. But is also, you know, a rape apologist in the Church of Scientology with parents who are high up in Scientology. They are known to intimidate. They are known not to answer questions. They are known to be cagey and catty about silly things because they don't have to talk to you. They don't feel entitled to give you anything. And that's very clear. Like, Emily has not given one good statement on Chester. Even in the Zane Lowe interview, Dave jumped in for her. You know, he was like, oh, by the way, we love this. And by the way, if you ask anybody, I'm pretty sure we will all have different answers about what you're asking. And it's like, why? You guys should have a very clear moment where you guys became a band. You should have a very clear moment where you guys were working on the music. And as I said in my research on this, and this is one of the reasons I've been getting so much fire or smoke on this, is just like, I found serious evidence that Mike Shinoda has always planned to be. I mean, I found a tweet from October, right before the Chester show in 2017, that 3-hour Hollywood Bowl in memoriam concert. Just 3 weeks before that, he was saying that the band was trying to get back on stage, that they wanted to get back on tour as fast as possible, that they had not said anything about their November shows on the tour, in specific, their shows in Japan, that they were like, well, we want to be there, but we have to figure out if that's even viable for us. If that's even some, I'm using viable a lot this time, but I like that word now. That sounds right, because this isn't viable. This situation isn't viable. But this is, you know, they were saying, there's a tweet from Mike, from the band, that's like, we're doing this and we want to be out here. A year later with Post Traumatic, he's being quoted as saying like, hey, it's really up to the audience. We're going to ride the inertia. I'm just going to keep releasing songs. And if it catches and it does good, then it does good, but it has to be great. You have to really want this if I'm going to bring it back. And 7 years later, what did he say on stage at the Kia Forum? This isn't about erasing Chester. This is about all of you, because there are so many fans who would like to see the show now. We have to bring it to you. But at the same time, he's saying, well, it happened fast. Like, oh, in January, we decided we had an album. But like, even 8 months is really fast to get us. And by the way, if you're going to tour your greatest hits, you might as well just call it the Paper Cuts Tour.
Yeah.
Why would you call it the From Zero World Tour when you're not touring the album during that tour? And then you're immediately going to drop the album and then go tour from zero. It doesn't make any sense.
I mean, obviously there was financial gain, right? Like he wanted to make a lot of money and go back on tour.
Millions a show already.
Yeah. And there's diehard Linkin Park fans that I understand, they don't care who got replaced the lead singer. They're going to go to the shows. I just don't think Emily's vocals, you can compare them to your father's, and that they're on the same level. I had a strange idea, and tell me if you think it's weird, because my fellow podcasters laughed at me, but I was like, why not a hologram? The holograms are getting so dang good nowadays. Why couldn't we bring Chester out as a hologram and go on tour?
You know what?
And I don't know.
That's so funny. That would be kind of weird, but like, imagine though, that's a great, thank you for being brave enough to say something like that, because at this point, what they're doing is so superficial and so bare minimum. I even said that about their show, because I went to the Kia Forum show, which was the first stop on the 6-part world tour. And they were hyping that shit up. And like the Zane Lowe interview, and before that, Brad, Mike, they were like, we've dedicated ourselves to making the best show possible and putting all this money and effort into it. And it's like, it's the same show they were doing 17 years ago with a little more synchronization between lights and smoke machine. Like they have 4 screens, which are on, they have 8 screens on 2 different objects instead of 2 flat screens. Okay. Like,
you were there. Was it weird to be there? Did it feel weird?
It was weird. I actually called it like I likened it to an exorcism, because on one hand, you had this kid who didn't even see the body.
Whoa. So you haven't seen your father's body.
I never saw the ashes. I know they're in an urn, but I've never seen inside. I don't think. If I did, I blocked it out, or it was so small of a time that it wasn't like I was sitting with it. But I never saw him. For my dad, when I was a junior or a senior in college, I was no, I was a junior, because it was a junior year, because it was my junior year summer that he died. But I told him I was suicidal in February of 2017. And he said, well, the way you're describing it, I know exactly what you're talking about. I go through the exact same thing, and you're right. Like it is really hard, and everything you're going through is valid, but I don't have any solutions for you. I've been trying for my entire life, and I just don't know what to tell you, because he knew my stance on therapy, which was that, you know, you have to be wanting to change to go to therapy. It's not
Yeah.
enough to pay someone just to talk to them. You have
Yeah.
to know that you're changing and the people around you are changing. Otherwise, you're just going to somebody to throw your, you know, your bullshit in the trash. That's all you're doing.
Yeah. Oh,
You're
I've
going,
done a
you're
lot of
paying somebody
therapy,
to
and
to just be like, I'm sad.
you gotta wanna change. It really does need to
Yeah.
be your time in life that you're like, "I'm over my own bullshit," or,
Yeah.
I'm not a big proponent for meds. I know it works for some people, and that's great. I'm super
Me
like, I
neither.
want control over my own mind, and I just wanna personally get myself straight and try to positive talk myself, meditate, whatever I
Yeah, I
can
love that.
do.
That's what I did.
Yeah.
And he knew about my stance on antidepressants at the time as well. I was not going to be medicated,
I
you know,
just don't
like,
wanna be, and like I said, I don't
yeah.
wanna knock it. I know things work for other people, but I don't want that control, and also I
Yeah.
get highs that are so high where my artsy creativeness
Yeah.
choreographs
Yeah.
routines, and I don't wanna lose those
Yeah.
highs of my I can't go to bed, I have to choreograph this dance all night or something, and then I feel like when I see my friends go on
It's
medication,
so
they are even out into zombie
exhilarating.
land, and
Yeah.
I'm like, "No, I
Yeah.
kinda wanna be my weirdo. I'll take the lows with the highs," kinda thing.
No, yeah, and I think that's something people don't realize about me too, is that I'm not angry. I'm just fluid with my emotions. Yeah, I can
Yeah.
go ahead and talk loud one second and be in love the next. Like,
Yeah.
I just know how it feels, and that's I'm honest in my feelings, and a lot of people aren't, or whether they're made to be or
Mhm.
whether they don't believe in it or whatever. Um, and that's just my energy. I'm just 100% standing in my truth. And I feel like with the hologram question, like legitimately, that's a better idea than what they did. If they had said, "Hey, we're doing," you know, if they came out with like a memoriam for Chester, like a vigil or like an acknowledgement of any kind, and they just dedicate the LPU show to that, and
Yeah.
then do your world tour for your greatest hits, do the paper cuts tour. Honestly, if I didn't have to watch Emily on stage and we could get like the actual vocals behind it, like, you know, just put the tracks down and just do a karaoke style, I'm sure that having Chester on tour as a hologram would not be a bad idea.
I don't
It
know,
would
I
be
have
kind of
crazy ideas.
respectful.
My
It would
friends
be kind of
laughed at me, but
respectful.
I liked it. I was like, "I'd go see it." I know
There were
that sounds
certain
weird.
there are certain times and situations that I would say that's absolutely unacceptable, but it's better of an idea than the one they're running with. If they were
Okay.
gonna go do
Yeah.
6 shows across the planet and they just wanted to feed on that nostalgia and they wanted to respect Chester, do I think that in 2024, given all of the postmodern madness that we live through, that a hologram would be the breaking factor, the no deal factor? I'd be like in 2020, I would have said that was messed up. But in 2024, I'm thinking like, was there a better way? If you guys, I mean, because now you have somebody walking around saying they're inspired by the band who's not able to hold the energy because they don't know the music. Like,
Yeah.
I watched them give up on giving up. Chester is a kind of guy who would sing that until he passed out on stage, get back up in 3 seconds, go into the
Mhm.
next song. Emily's not doing that. Emily's
No.
singing with about as much energy as I am talking right now.
Yeah. Yeah, I
And she
just
still
it's
cracks and breaks.
boring.
It's weird.
It's boring for me to watch. I wasn't a big Dead Sarah fan. Like I said, she was really short with me when she came by my media
Mm,
tent, so maybe I caught her
yeah.
on a bad day, but I'm not intrigued.
No,
I'm
you
not
didn't. She's
watching
still
her.
doing it.
Okay,
It's
okay.
just Emily.
Yeah, I was like, "Man, that's a bummer when
That's my
you're
opinion.
excited, you set up, and this I'm asking you about your project that you created, and you're giving me one-word answers, and you're just not." That's kinda rude, and
But
I
that's so super Scientology. Like, that's so Mike
yeah.
Shinoda. Like, yeah, we're gonna
So wait,
only
Mike's
give
a
you the energy.
Scientologist too?
So my theory right now is that, well, because
Okay.
here's the thing with the Church of Scientology, you can't you have to be one of two things. You can't just be around the church and not be one of these two things, because the church doesn't affiliate with you if you're not one of these two things. You have to either be greenlit by the church as a safe place, as like
Mm,
an affiliate, essentially,
yeah.
someone who's going to allow the church to exist. You don't have to be in the church, but you would be allowed to exist, you know, in parallel to the church because they agree with you. That's the
Okay.
celebrity aspect of it. One of the celebrity aspect of it. And then the other aspect of it is that you literally cannot talk about or to you can't talk about anything or talk to anybody who isn't in the church. People who are in the church,
Oh,
if
yeah.
you leave and you can't, and you don't, you say I'm done, and your family's in, you can't talk to your family anymore.
Yeah, I've watched the documentaries, and
Yeah.
and I had an apartment in LA right across from the Church of Scientology, and so I would just watch
Oh,
people go in and
nice.
out, and it was kind of wild, and I was so young, I was partying. There was nothing fascinating to me about, kind of trying to get into church or something. I was going to the Rainbow Bar and Grill, and that's all I cared about. But
Hey,
it was there was lots of celebrities. There was the Kardashians at one point. There was Justin Bieber, because I would see all the paparazzis and TMZ run out
yeah.
to my window, and I'd be hungover, like, oh, that's too loud. But it is such a close, tight-knit thing that's a good point you bring up, that how come maybe Mike or some other people in the band, if not are in Scientology themselves, are at least accepted to keep secrets and be close enough with someone that is high up in the church. That means a lot.
Well, and the more that I learn about Mike, the more research that comes to light, hidden, like photos that are hidden by time. Somebody showed me a photo and I thought it was 2016 that happened, but it was actually 2014 during the hunting party tour at the Rock in Rio event in Portugal. The band is pictured, minus, I think just minus Rob. I don't think Rob was there at all. He's pictured Chester and the rest of the guys with Bill Clinton and the former Republic
Oh,
president.
okay.
And
Okay.
then a year later, Mike Shinoda's pictured with the Burkles, who are supporters of the
Is this a
Clintons.
Jeffrey Epstein right now? Mike's like
That's
got
what
an
I'm saying
island
is like,
and
that's what I'm saying is like,
he
he
knows
is
everybody.
embedded in like the top 1%. Like
What?
Linkin Park interacted with Jay-Z because of Mike.
Okay.
Chester
Yeah, because
ended up
that was
going to
hot. That
like,
2004
I
collab
know.
was on
Yeah,
fire.
because that whole thing is really interesting because Mike Shinoda can say he's not entitled or privileged or whatever, but like in reality, there was a show that MTV was trying to put on at the time where bands did mix-ups like the one or mashups like the ones that Collision Course provided. They were
Yeah.
supposed to do 2 songs, and they were supposed to do it with Jay, and then Mike went out and made a whole album,
Well,
and they actually
Malibu ain't
tried
cheap
to.
to grow up around in Calabasas. That ain't a
No,
cheap
and he
area.
thought he got away with something that the label themselves were like, no way, because the album was made in conjunction with Rock Nation
Oh, okay.
or with whatever Jay was with at the time. With maybe it was Def Jam, maybe that's what it was. But they did something. I think he had Rock Nation at the time, but they were really big, and when they did that, they tried to pass it off as part of their contract. And Warner
Mm.
Music Group was like, no, that's not true. We don't have sole ownership over that. That's not, no, you guys chose to go out and have fun with Jay. That's your problem. And then the show for MTV basically never happened after that.
Ah,
The whole program kind of got
crazy.
slapped out of the game. Like, they were playing basketball and somebody fouled over the line and then they weren't able to do it anymore.
Yeah.
They got called out by the ref, and then that's that next came Minutes to Midnight, and that's when they did in 2006. Linkin Park tried to renegotiate their contract with Warner Music Group. They tried to get like a $60 million advance. They got like 15 million, but they had like 2 more albums, which ended up being The Hunting Party and One More Light added onto their contract. So One More Light was actually, by the way, everybody, the last album on Chester's record contract with Warner Music Group. So he had been under contract
Wow.
with that company from 2000 to 2017, 17 years. He was
It's a long
a
time.
slave. It's a long,
It's a really long
yeah,
time.
I'm 28. that's,
Yeah.
that's, more than half my life. So that's like, that's
Do you
wild.
know
And
about why Rob left, or
no, I'm actually
okay.
really worried about Rob, and I'll keep saying that until somebody with an actual like credible response comes and says something, because the
I'm
only
curious if he was
person
uncomfortable with your dad being replaced. That's the
there,
first thing that came to my
Rob hasn't
mind.
said anything.
Yeah.
Actually, there's no Rob at all. Um, to be very clear, a lot of people seem to think that Mike Shinoda is Linkin Park, but Mike Shinoda is only 1/3 of the founding members. The other founding members are Bradford Delson, the guitar player, and Rob Borden, the drummer. Rob Borden has not given a single statement about any of this. Mike
Wow.
is the one who gave a statement for Rob, and he said
That's
it was
weird. That's
and
really weird.
he said Rob was just okay and everything. about the band he just distanced himself from, and that's it. That's all he's given, is just
Now
that
I
Rob
want to
doesn't want to be
send
in
a
the
press
band.
request to Rob. I'm just like, I want to know
You
what
should.
he
You
thinks.
should.
Yeah,
People should be knocking
how
down
he
his door
feels.
right now, because we need to know if he consented. We need to know if he's safe, and we need to know if if he needs anything, because Chester died. For 7 years, Linkin Park gaslit fans, saying they weren't doing things while they were very clearly saying and doing the Linkin Park thing. My whole theory is that From Zero actually probably is a reworking of the One More Light B-sides, because they said they had a whole album. They said they went back to basics. They said that, I mean, how did I don't even know how Mike got away with releasing a single of Chester's vocals, with Chester's vocals after Chester died, and it becoming a chart topper and
You
winning
guys
awards.
didn't sign off on it at all? Any
No,
kind of legal documents? No?
not me. No, I was never made aware of
How is
anything.
this may be too
I don't even
personal,
have
but
the box sets. They never
yeah,
sent them or asked me about anything.
that's rude.
It's super weird.
Do you guys get anything financially back
Not
from the
me.
band?
I
Because
don't
it's
get
your
anything.
father's creation? Wow.
No, nothing.
I just think this should be illegal.
I
how
think
is
it
there
should
not
be different for sure. Yeah. I mean, they
well, because
can,
it's your
because
father's creation and he's the
no,
reason one of the
no,
reasons you're banned.
Chester signed on to Linkin Park. Linkin Park is a corporation. Linkin Park is a corporation run by 3 people, or founded by 3 people: Rob Borden, Bradford Delson, and Mike Kenji Shinoda.
Okay.
And
Wow.
actually, there was the band's super dirty, by the way. They're the biggest band in the world nobody knows anything about. And there's another person we need to be asking if they're okay and where they're at. Their name is Kyle Christner. He was one of the bass players for Linkin Park before Scott, the man who played bass on Hybrid Theory, came in, and eventually was replaced with Dave Farrell, Phoenix. Because
Jamie, you're scaring me now. Are we going to get off from just talking about this on live? We're going to get a
well,
knock at the door?
you can't. The whole platform that I developed is literally a bulletproof vest. That's why it exists. The
Okay,
Picture Pieces
good.
archive is my insurance policy, because
Okay.
yeah, the Clintons are involved. Yes, there are high-ranking 1%ers in every little
Is
crevice of this
Scientologist going to
problem.
be at my door? Like, can you take
They
this
shouldn't
interview?
be. They shouldn't be, and they shouldn't have a right to determine what's actually going on with people who don't associate with them. But
Yeah.
yeah, I was
Freedom of
actually
speech.
threatened for the Kios forum. I was actually threatened by the Church of Scientology. Yeah, they said people came up on behalf of the church and on behalf of Mike and Emily, and they threatened to jump me and into the hospital for showing up at the show and speaking
I'm
what I was
so
speaking.
sorry for being at your late father's show to show him respect.
For wanting to go and
Yeah.
not supporting the band, and yeah, for being vocal about what I think. And I actually
You're
had law
just being
enforcement escort me.
honest.
Yeah, that's
You
just how I
know,
feel, and these are my experiences. I had to have law enforcement get involved because they have a fair game policy if you're against the church. You didn't say you are. I said I am, but
yeah, but
it's just
that's
what
just
it is. It's just my
crazy.
thought and feeling. I don't agree,
Did
and
you
I don't
stay at
support
the
it.
show or did
Yeah, I went to the
you
show, and I
okay.
didn't disguise myself or anything. I was out there
Okay.
having a blast, and
But
I
that's
thought it was,
scary that you felt
yeah,
threatened and you're there for a late family member to be
yeah.
supportive and you shouldn't feel threatened in that area.
Absolutely. And but that was very real. You're asking if the danger is real. Yes, that's what I'm saying. Is this is situation. This isn't just a band. This is not just a simple
No, and I
situation.
joke because I'm a silly person, but I
Yeah.
legit know there's bullshit. There's so much
Well,
corruption
for
and there's so much
people who
crazy.
don't understand, because some people don't
Yeah.
believe it. Some people are
Yeah.
like, well,
Oh,
that
no.
can't be true. It's like, no, this
No, it
is.
is.
And to go back to the Linkin Park thing, like, yeah, they do a lot of stuff that's really interesting. Remind me what I was saying before that, because there are so many stories. I don't want to go into a different one.
Oh, basically, I was asking about Rob, just and you answered that for
Rob,
me.
yeah.
That I didn't know if he had told you that he left because he was uncomfortable with Emily
Oh, we were
signing
talking about
on or
Kyle
not.
Christner.
Oh,
There we
yeah.
go. Yeah, so there's another guy like Rob, except for he's, where Rob is inside the band and he's a founding member. There's another guy named Kyle Christner who was a bass player. So Kyle, back in 1999, he helped Linkin Park secure their Warner Brothers contract as a bass player. So yes, he was a session player, but he was also a producer. So not only did he help them secure their contract, but he also produced and performed on multiple tracks. the original Hybrid Theory EP, which was disseminated to the Linkin Park Underground fan club at the time. That Hybrid Theory EP, that's him. That's him playing. It's not Scott. It's not Dave. So a lot of people don't realize how many different kinds of artists were in this band, because even before Chester, there was Mark, and then there was a bunch, there was a couple of people. Yeah. So before Chester, there was Mike, and then there was Mark, because Shinoda started the band with Mark. It was Zero at the time. And then Mark ended up having other things going on, and so he left the band. They auditioned multiple vocalists. Chester ended up being the vocalist that they chose. And so when they entered into the band became Hybrid Theory. So the name of the first album is actually the name of the band. And then they went to Linkin Park because there was a band called Hybrid under Warner already. And so they made their first album, Hybrid Theory, and they called themselves Linkin Park, which was a name that Chester came up with.
Wow.
So that's how that happened, according to the legend. And they won't clarify on any of this. So that's what it is. Until you start speaking truth, you guys, then you guys get the truth that's given.
Yeah.
And so with that being said, Kyle Christner, at the time that all this mix-up was going on, he was the bass player. And they're saying he was only the bass player for a couple of months, but Kyle Christner performed and produced on 24 tracks.
And elevated the band. If you are a producer and you knew someone at Warner, I mean, that's somebody that helped the band out a lot along the way.
Absolutely. And so they owe a lot to this guy, and they owe a lot to Chester. And these are people who are obviously too good for the music industry, because as we learn about Kyle, right when they got the contract, before it was signed, he was fired, replaced with the bass player that would become known for Hybrid Theory. He was told that all of his session work on the Hybrid Theory EP was going to be erased, and that they were going to retrack it with the actual bass player so that they could credit him properly on the album. And then they took his name off of the actual Hybrid Theory EP and released it to the fan club. So they released as early as the beginning of Linkin Park, they have been lying and lying to fans and manipulating them, and also lying to their artists and manipulating them. And that's really interesting. And so Kyle, he didn't say anything. He had 2 chances when he could have litigated against the band. That 3 years from 1999 to 2003. So from like the most profitable moment of LP history.
Yeah.
To because that's all of Hybrid Theory. So one of the best-selling albums of all time, he had the option to litigate for 3 years for credit and royalties, and he didn't. Okay.
Are we sure Kyle and Rob aren't chained up in a basement somewhere right now?
No, we aren't. We are not. Not like all seriousness. No, we're not, because you can be chained in the basement and just it can look. No, it's totally valid here, because me too. And when there was this a little aside here, there was a AI video that went around of Chester, one of his last interviews with Mike, and somebody AI modified it with AI, and he's like, "Emily, I love Emily. Everybody should give her a chance," And it was so funny, and it says parody on it, so it says it's a joke. It says this isn't real. He's like, she's like, hearing her is like seeing like lightning strike 10 feet away, just like funny shit.
I'm glad you didn't get mad and you could laugh at that
it's
too.
Funny, dude.
That is ridiculous. Yeah.
I'm the kind of guy who would, when my dad died, I would make fun of people because they'd be like, "Hey, do you want to hang out?" And I'd be like, "That's so insensitive,"
And
they'd be like, "Oh my God." I'd be like, my friends don't take it too seriously because they know I'm joking, but people who don't, and I don't differentiate because I'm just, I'm flat across the board and super transparent. And people just like, so many people just like, "Oh my God, what did I do?" And I'm like, I'm playing, guys. Come on. It's funny. It's like a normal thing to say, "Hey, I want to hang out with you, but now my dad's dead."
You can use it as an excuse to get out of things. No.
Use it as an excuse to get out of things. You can use it as a joke to make people uncomfortable. You can use it as a joke to laugh between you and your closest friends. And so when this came out, and I'm more refined now, of course, as an adult, I have a more refined sense of humor, but a lot of people don't understand when I'm being sarcastic or trolling. But I do. And I know it's subtle, but I'm doing it. And so, I thought that was so funny. And I told the guy, we had a whole conversation, by the way, because people were like, "This is disgusting. This person should burn in hell." And I'm like, "No, you don't understand. And I shared it myself, and I went to the guy and I was like, he's like, "Hey man, I made this video. I hope that it doesn't offend you." He came to me and he's
Oh,
like, "Hey,
that's
I hope
really
that
neat
I know."
that
And I was
he
like,
reached out.
dude, you know what's funny about this is I've shared it with so many people thinking that they think it was funny or understand the parody element of it, the satire element of it, because that is literally what's happening right now. If that video is in a nutshell, this entire Linkin Park situation.
Yeah, yeah, and, like,
And
for mental health reasons, like, I have music and comedy, and music and comedy is what gets me through and makes me feel better, and
yeah,
sometimes the darker the comedy, like, the better I feel, the harder
the
I laugh.
blacker it is, the more I love it. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah, I
I
dig
the
it.
same way I love all my friends and who rep me. Like the people I know who are the realest people in the world are POCs. They're not white people, and
Yeah,
the more color there is to it, the better, man. Like 100%. And I feel like with this situation, I was like, hey, like we have a responsibility for sure as like creators and comedians and whatnot. Like, yes, this is a great joke. It should be made, in my opinion. If there's an opportunity and you see it, then you should take it. That is the whole point of comedy. It's about opportunity. It's like, do you know how the world works and what your place is in it? And I just told them, like, for as many people as I think would get this, because for example, I'm on my Instagram live and I'm like, this is my space. You leave me alone. You're just being a brat.
mhm.
Which, by the way, last year I said I was in my brat era. So for all of you who don't know me, go watch my highlights on Instagram. I've been saying I'm being a brat on purpose. You guys think that I'm
Yeah,
being high energy and hateful? No, I'm being annoying because it's allowed.
same. I'm
And
in my villain era. I'm a
I'm in
villain
my
right
villain
now,
era.
you know?
Okay,
Yeah,
it's my brat era, and you guys can all suck it if you disagree.
yeah, yeah,
And with the video, I was just like, guy, you made the best joke at the wrong time. I think that's something we need to acknowledge, is that we have a responsibility, but also there's timing. I think that your responsibility was fulfilled, but maybe wait until they drop the album.
yeah,
Give them a whole world tour to explain themselves and be good people. Let them show their true colors, which is that they don't care about that at all. And then drop the video, because by the end of it, they're going to want you thinking that Chester would be 100% behind this, knowing that he wasn't. So that's when you drop the video, and that's when it's funny, and that's when it explodes, and then you shot the band down at the same time.
yeah,
And that's real comedy, like that's like the highest you could go with it. And they were like, no, you're totally right. I got really excited about this, and I just, I'm so annoyed. And I was like, okay. I won't speak about their emotions. Maybe I'll say they just recognize that it is what it is, and they took it down.
oh,
They were like, no, I understand, and I don't want this to muddy the waters. I don't want this to be used as a way to like confuse people. And it was literally just a joke. I'm gonna take it down. And I was like, thank
the
you. I'm gonna
AI
share
are
that with
getting
people.
so realistic nowadays, like, it's
It
intense.
sounded pretty real, man. Like I was listening
Yeah,
to it. I had some people hit me up and they were like, I didn't even know I was I didn't know this was modified. It was just a video. I thought it was just an interview. So I played it and I
whoa.
just put the phone down and didn't even read. And he said these things, and I literally had like a fucking heart attack. Like I'm sitting here like, oh my God, when did he say that? Wait, I'm so confused. And then they were like, they understood. But the person who I was like, this is my space. They get it. They come into my
Yeah,
DMs. They're like, excuse me, but this is Instagram, right?
yeah,
and I'm
yeah,
like, and I'm like, thank you. Thank you for playing with me. I appreciate that. I am joking. I am messing around. When I say MySpace and I'm being catty like that, like, yes, it is a joke.
yeah.
Obviously, I'm saying something that sounds like something else, knowing that you know better, because this the Linkin Park fan base is MySpace era. Like they
You're
are early
right. Yeah,
90s, early
that's me.
2000s people. Like it's you
Yeah.
guys, you guys literally came up
We're
on
in
the
our
internet when
40s
it
and
wasn't
we were
real.
no, there was no internet. I went to high school and college, and it started when I was in college, and it was to trade books. We had a
Yeah.
Facebook. Mark Zuckerberg emailed me that you could trade books in between people, so we all had it in college to trade books, and now everyone's on Facebook, but I grew up on
Yeah.
MySpace, and,
And
I
cell
miss
phones
it.
too.
Yeah,
It wasn't even a
I
thing.
miss it. Oh, I just miss it. It was so cool.
I was
You'd
watching
leave
the
school
Princess
and you
Diaries the other day.
yeah.
Just because I was going back. I was like, I want to watch some of these old movies. Last night I watched Stitch Has a Glitch. And then because I was like, I haven't seen that as an adult. And I thought that was the first movie. I thought that was the first Lilo and Stitch. That's not it.
No,
So that was weird. I just had like a mental movie of both of the movies being the same movie
you're a
as a
baby.
kid. Yeah, I was a super baby. I was 2005.
Have
And
you seen
then
Labyrinth? I'm obsessed.
yes, I have, of
Okay.
course. I
Oh,
love
good.
David.
Yeah.
He's got such a wonderful expression of himself.
Yeah.
And Chester was a huge David fan. That's actually why Dead by
Nice.
Sunrise was originally called Snow White Tan,
No
because
way.
Ziggy Stardust. Of
Yeah.
course.
No, I'm a huge David Bowie fan,
Yeah.
like obsessed.
I don't
Yeah.
think people realize that either. And
I didn't know that.
but I just, with that AI video and with these jokes, like I'm always just messing around, and I think it's, it's kind of funny, that you ask if I do mental health, any kind of mental health work, or if I orient my art around mental health, because I think a lot of people didn't know what to think of it when I came out, because my mental health was so bad in the past, and I'll bring this back to Emily. I don't remember where we were, but we can circle back to the original question of inspiration. Like, it's one thing to be inspired by something, but it's another thing to stand in the energy of the thing that you're inspired by. And I feel
Yeah.
like watching Emily perform is like watching somebody who loves the band, but has no fucking idea what it means to be in a crack house at 14.
Ooh, that is a great point.
And you can hear it.
Behind
Yeah, you
it.
can hear
Yeah.
it because
Mhm.
Chester's he's a spell worker. When his lyrics come across and he's like, "You take the best of me, go away." You hear that. It's like,
You're
no,
mosh pitting. You're
he's
getting
not
hyped.
angry, dude. He's not angry. He
No,
just
you
fucking
feel it.
left Earth. He just went
Yeah.
poof, out my body. Like, say to you is here right now. And my answer to you is
Yeah.
yourself. And
Yeah.
I mean every fiber of my being. And then you hear songs like
Oh, you just went mute.
this. Ah,
There we go.
hold
Yeah,
on.
you got too into singing. When you sang, you got
Sorry,
into it.
my aura literally messes with my mic all the time. I last time I was on StreamYard, we were talking about the Clintons, and it was muting me and turning off my camera and things. And that was with Aaron on growing up with Scientology. So it wouldn't happen here, but the second that I get like high energy about it, my mic always cuts out. So
That's
yeah.
crazy.
But when he's saying you did it to yourself, when he's saying, you know, I'm a crack in this castle of glass and things like that, like, you don't understand what it meant to be growing up in the early 90s in your own band, scratching and climbing for any kind of visibility at all, let alone a venue to play in. By the time that Chester got to Lincoln Park, a lot of people forget this because Sean Dowdell of Grey Days is a gatekeeper for this information, and Mike Shinoda doesn't want you to know this. He wants you to think that Lincoln Park is all there is. But Chester, by the time he made it to Lincoln Park, he'd already quit the music industry. He'd been in a band since 94 when he was a sophomore in high school. That
He
was
wiped
Grey
his
Days.
hands and was like, "I'm done. I
Yeah, he
did
was
it. I
done.
tried."
So he made an
Wow.
album called they made an EP called Wake Me. They expanded it into the first full-length album of that Grey Days is known for. Then they the year that I was born, they released No Sun Today. And then they had toured both of those in like some way or another. And then following those tours, they ended up doing major label showcases. So by the time that Lincoln Park became Lincoln Park, they already knew about Chester. Chester had already performed for Warner Music Group. They had already performed for all these other big, or I guess Warner Music Records at the time, it would be Warner Brothers. They had done the entire circuit multiple times. When they came back in 1998 to Arizona, they were almost done with their third album. They were doing production rehearsals for that at the time. That the band broke up in 98. That's what they were working on. But there was problems with Mace Bayers, which is the bassist who recently was fired from the band for a couple of very controversial reasons. I covered that on my YouTube. So if anybody's interested, feel free to go take a look. But he was like, he quit. He was like, I don't want to do this anymore. At the time that he was in Grey Days as an adult, he was actually he was a map maker for the city of Phoenix. Back before people had phones and stuff, he was helping to integrate information into like modern city maps. It's really interesting. And then he
Yeah.
ended up working at Burger King. And then when he, on his, I think it was his 24th or 25th birthday, maybe it was his 23rd, he got that call. And from Lincoln Park, he got that call from he had this tape that came across his desk. They sent him the hybrid theory tape, and he did his own stuff over it. And then from that moment on, he was in the band, but he had quit for like a year. And he had worked at Burger King,
That's cool.
So
Hey, we all have had weird jobs or
no,
strange
that's why
stories,
Chester's the goat, right? Like
Yeah.
Chester
Yeah.
is like everybody else. The only thing that he
He's more
isn't normal
relatable.
for is the celebrity. He climbed
Yeah.
into the celebrity sphere, but he was already, I mean, go listen to Just Like Heroin. He already had it before he got to Linkin Park. And I think that that's an incredibly important thing to remember in all of this is like, Chester knows, though. Emily doesn't know. She's from a privileged life. She may be a victim of her life, which she is as a member of Scientology or a child raised in it. You're a victim, whether you want to be or not. But because brainwashing is brainwashing. So even if you like it, brainwashing is still brainwashing. A cult is still a cult. I would know. I escaped mine. But I consider Linkin Park to be a cult. I consider this entire industry to be a cult. So I escaped that, that's why I'm doing this on the other side of the veil. And
I left Hollywood, and even just being in like rock journalism and radio, I felt like it was a dangerous place that was kind of dark and evil.
I left LA after a year. I said, no more.
I was there for 7 years, and I got deep into it, like up in the hills and all the parties. And I saw some crazy shit that I don't even talk about. And I talk about a lot of details. And I was just like, Hollywood is not for me. There's just some evil energy going around. And I moved
That's what I said exactly.
Yeah.
I was there for a year trying to break into the industry with, I say without nepotism, but I did get one internship from the Delsons through their privilege. So which is Bradford Delson, one of the core members of the band. And so like, I guess I can't really say that anymore. I used to think that cause I got the internship specifically through the Delsons, it makes it kind of a Nepo thing, but like that, I didn't get handouts. I was not automatically connected with anything. I had to fight for that one. Yeah. And even now they won't even talk to me or treat me like I'm like a real person. Like I've basically just been ignored and marginalized by the entire band. I mean, even as of 2 days ago, when I did the End of Linkin Park live stream, Colin Brittain, the drummer, literally blocked me after refusing to acknowledge me when I asked him for help. Because I said I do not support to all of them, but I did ask for help when I was threatened by the Church of Scientology on Emily and Mike's behalf. Yeah. And he did not respond. And then the thing he said, he was like, bye. The little thing he said that too before he blocked me was literally me putting together. I put a timeline together of all the inconsistencies on my Instagram of like what I've been seeing about the reporting on Emily and what Mike's been saying about what LP's true intentions were over the years. And that's all I said. All I said was that he was in the band. I didn't say anything to him about him. I didn't ask him for anything. I wasn't talking shit. All I did was tag him. I tagged him and Emily, and he said bye and then blocked me.
And that was after threatened. That's a scary thing, to be threatened into being silenced or and then someone blocks you, not saying, hey, do you need help? Are you okay?
Well, Mike blocked me. So Mike was following me at the start of all of this when he started the social media campaign. He was following me. He has followed me on and off. He was watching in June when I talked, when I analyzed critically, I offered commentary on the way that he, so people are reporting on this, and they only brought in 1/3 of the actual conversation, actually 1/3, because I made 3 points during this conversation.
I hate some journalists, honestly, because they
they don't want to touch it.
No, but they'll bullshit and twist your words and take like 2 sentences out of context that you said, and that's the headline.
That's all that
I love podcasts, and I don't edit mine. I just leave them raw, and it's just a conversation of reality, because
that's me.
I hate it when somebody is like, I'm going to filter in bits and pieces. That's not what somebody actually meant or said.
But also, like, sometimes you're going to be wrong, and sometimes you don't know, and sometimes
totally. I'm sure I've said shit that I'm like, oh, that's fucking not accurate. I need to Google more information about
people. I found that there was a weird Google summary where it said that Revolver magazine said that Emily joined Linkin Park on stage for the Hunting Party in 2014, just like as a featured artist. And so I've been researching that, and what I found was that there's a weird like summary linking in the there's a summary linking of summaries. And I didn't know that. And so people were showing me how it worked. And I was like, okay, so I guess not. And I'm wrong. Okay, cool. No
I
problem.
gotta be
But you have
honest,
to
she
talk
was
about
so
it.
forgettable. This is how I found out that she came by my show. She was
Yeah.
so unmemorable and forgettable. I didn't
Yeah.
remember that she came by my old station and was on my YouTube show. And all of a sudden, I got an alert on my phone that 2 clips from YouTube are blowing up and doing,
Oh, wow.
exponentially better.
Wow.
And I found out they were, Emily Armstrong and Dead
Yeah.
Sarah from 2014, from 10 years ago. And I go, holy shit, I
That
didn't
would
know
have
I
been the
sat
time.
down. I know I didn't know I sat down with her,
Yeah.
and those clips have been,
That's so amazing.
and
So
that's,
that's
yeah.
actually amazing, because what you're saying is that she is that quiet often, and she's that unremarkable on purpose. I mean, she says conflicting, confusing things all the time. During the LPU showcase, she said that Mike taught her how to sing in 8 months, which I get it. People come up to me, they're like, bro, but she was in a band. Don't you get satire? Like, they're literally joking. And I'm like, yeah, obviously, I know she's been in a band for 20 years. Obviously, I know she's a vocalist. I have said, actually, personally, that I don't think she's a bad vocalist. I just don't think she's
Yeah.
Chester Bennington's
Yes.
level of intensity. So I'm
That's
sure that the
exactly.
new Linkin Park will sound fine with her on it. But it's when she's singing Chester songs that I go, why are you doing that? Like, you didn't have to
Mm.
do this. And that was a choice. So you then get criticized based on the choice that you made. If you're going to go out there trying to be Chester Bennington as his son, and as now Chester Bennington, because Mike Shinoda said I was, like he said, he's been saying that at all the shows. You all in all the fans, all the people in the audience, you're Chester Bennington,
Weird.
like he did on the LPU show,
That's
the
weird.
first show they did. So it's like she
I
says
didn't wanna watch it,
conflicting
to be
things.
completely honest. I didn't wanna watch it. A lot of
Did
my
you watch
friends in
it?
LA, no, a lot of my friends in LA were there and went, and I didn't wanna watch it. To me,
It
it's
was
not
weird.
Lincoln Park. It's not Lincoln
Well,
Park. But just that's
they
my opinion.
they came on stage, they did this whole,
I
honestly,
mean, I saw clips, right? Like,
that
they came up.
stage was better than the stage that they're doing all the other shows on, in my
Okay.
opinion. Which is why I'm like, why did you say that this was so innovative and so blah blah blah? You're literally just hyping. You're a hype machine. That's all you are. You're just hyping everyone up for something, and then when they get there, you're literally either saying you're not going to do the thing you hyped them up for, or you're saying that this is all they get.
Yeah.
And when I was at the show, so at the LPU concert, it was really weird because that showcase, they played the first single. They acknowledged that they were going on tour. Brad didn't show up, but he had his stand-in Alex there, but they did not mention what that was. So it was like, that was my fault.
You're all
Why
good.
didn't they, for example, why would you call it the From Zero World Tour if you're not touring the album From Zero? What are you going to
Yeah.
call your From Zero tour? That's a good
Yeah.
question. When you get on stage and you don't acknowledge Chester, that's a problem. When then you contract the audience as observers into the role of Chester Bennington, so you don't have to talk to them about Chester, but so you can also ingratiate yourself with the choices you've made by having your fans standing in as Chester, praising you and begging you for the thing that you're doing. It's very weird. To have a new vocalist on stage is weird when you're not going to acknowledge Chester. To have her sing his songs is weird. To have her not ready to sing those songs and break multiple times under the pressure of singing those songs during the show, which was only 60 minutes, is kind of really strange. To only
Yeah.
share one single when you're saying that your actual album is coming out in November is weird. To have an album that comes out in November is weird. To say that you weren't working on the album, but then to have a very clear paper trail saying that Linkin Park has been in the works for 7 years regularly is weird. To have Emily say, oh, I was taught in 8 months is weird, because that means she came in January, which is the time that Kyle Christner would have been litigating against Linkin Park, which is someone we're circling back to. And also at the time, I was going through some interesting things. And so there's some overlap that's very, very weird. And
Yeah.
then, of course, so, coming back to that comment of like, oh, she's a singer. Of course I know she's a singer. Of course I know she's a singer. But, to say that Mike taught her how to sing Linkin, because that means that they started, see, my computer's getting weird now, that they started the Linkin Park idea 8 months ago is very interesting. For them to have
Yeah.
created an entire album and then to have asked Emily to join And she said in an interview, I believe it was the Zane Lowe interview, she thought she was a featured artist. This is why I say that all of the professional sessions across the last like 7 years, whether they were in Mike Shinoda's creative community online, or they were at his in-home studio, or he was out hanging out with other people, they consistently have said that they've held creative sessions with Linkin Park as Linkin Park for the last 7 years. So it's like, in my mind, I think what they're doing is taking that One More Light material that they didn't get to share because they had another album. That was the whole point, is that the One More Light stuff was kind of like the next album. It was kind of like the stuff that didn't make it, but also stuff that they were hoping to make.
Yeah.
We went back and obviously and looked at that. So The Emptiness Machine, Heavy is the Crown, these are all songs that came from that. And then they added all of these featured artists onto it, because that's what their big thing was when One More Light came around, when Hunting Party came around. I hate it when Mike says that they didn't have they had like Rakim and members from System of a Down. They had like a lot of people in there, and then One More Light, they had more people in it. And so it only makes sense that it become more and more dense with these session artists, these features. And so when Emily, she's like, I thought I was a featured artist. Well, that's probably a part of that one thing that she did in 2019. If that's the only thing she did, according to the major timeline, that's supposedly what happened. So it's, all of this is just very strange. And then to have like Brad not give his statement, like he gave a statement saying that he's not joining anybody on tour, that he has a stand-in guitarist, he's going to stay in the studio.
I saw that.
And he's so excited, and all this teamwork and family and friendship, which is literally what they've spit in the face of.
You know, the first thing that came to my mind is finances, right? And financials play such a big role. In LA, I saw money, you know, tear bands apart and whatnot. Is that, I wonder if finances played a big role in hiring Emily, because she was much more affordable than Derek of Sum 41 or Corey of Slipknot. And then
she's super affordable because
that's what I'm saying. Like, so they could pocket more money
for the church. So she's not only so there are a couple of things that Emily's really good for right now. She's good for recruiting, and she's good for changing or managing the narrative of the Scientology church, which her mother has a very high position in, has had multiple high positions in. And so that's something to say about Emily. About Mike, like they're making, and people can go on about whatever they want, but the truth of the matter is that when it comes down to money, they're making $5 million a show.
I mean, and getting a less known hired gun, you can put more money in your pocket in the band.
More money in your pocket. You can even pay them more so that they shut up and don't say things you don't want them to say.
Yeah.
Stay in the hotel room and don't go hang out with anybody, because you have a narrative. They all know what the narrative is. They all know what they're trying to hold together. They're all unified on a front. We don't know what that front is. So, you know, all of that is very big. You know, obviously they cashed in on the nostalgia. I mean, to go back to the LPU show, it was super weird because they even had, it was a raffle show. So if you're in the LPU, you get a chance to get a ticket. Well, some of the people I know got tickets to the show because they were included in the raffle. And I asked them while they were there, I was like, hey, how much money did you spend just getting there? Because they don't pay for anything. So you have people flying international, you have people flying domestic to go watch the show that only is 60 minutes, is most of it just Mike, you know, ingratiating himself and Emily cracking under the pressure. And no matter how excited they look, that's kind of just what it was. And what's weird about it is that, you know, these people are paying, this person I know paid upwards of $900 because they had to pay for the transportation, the food, the hotels. They had to, you know,
that's a lot of money. That's a lot of money. One show, for one 1 hour show.
For one 1 hour show that wasn't even worth the money.
Yeah.
You know, and then you have Brad, who wasn't even there. He hadn't given his public statement. They barely acknowledged Alex. Like I'll go make fun of and talk about Colin and Emily and Mike and Brad and Dave and Joe. But I have a hard time being weird with Alex, because Alex in reality is a session musician. you know?
Yeah.
He's hired to do what he's doing. That's what he's doing. He
Yeah,
was
and I know,
hired to
like,
be
we have to pay
Brad.
the bills, and
Literally.
everything.
As a
Yeah.
musician, like okay, that's a killer job. You get to go, you literally were hired by Linkin Park to go play Linkin Park songs
Yeah.
for like a living. That's kind of sick. But it's not the same with Emily, and it's not the same with
No.
Colin, who are creative partners in the process. They're not just stand-ins, and they're new faces of the band. And I also think that Brad did him super dirty, Alex, because Brad's on all of the promotional material. He's on the venue promotions. Like at the Kia Forum, he literally Brad's face is on the banner, but Alex's face isn't
Whoa.
on the banner. So he's hired this guy to be him while the guy's on tour. He's not even allowed to be visible except for on the stage. That's insane to me. Like that just sounds so disrespectful. It's the
You're
same
not
thing that
getting
they
the
did to
credit you
Chester.
deserve right
I don't
there.
feel like he is. And
Yeah.
he's pretty solid. Like he sounds like Brad. It's true. I did a rating of the Kia Forum performances. I said Joe was the worst. Joe Han was the worst of the performers. Right above that was Colin, in my opinion. I don't think he's a great drummer. I think he's a drummer the same way I think that Emily's a singer, but I don't think that he gave that same energy that Rob brings to the drum set. He tried to do some, fills or some, breakdowns or some, solos. And I just didn't get it. Like I grew up with Rob, dude. You're not going to be Rob's one of the best drummers in the industry.
Yeah, he's really
Like,
good. That's
and
what I
he's
was
got
shocked
energy
when
he
he
brings to
wasn't
the
with them
table. Like,
anymore, and I'm like,
well,
"What
and
what
that,
do you?"
and Mike's the only one who's talked about him. Brad hasn't said anything. Dave hasn't said anything. Like there's no like verifiable proof that Rob
Yeah.
had said any of this. It's just people saying it for
So I
him.
said,
And
"We
I've
gotta
said
check
it
the
since it's
basement,
happened.
man.
Like,
Dude, what the
yeah, we really
Scientology
do.
basement in LA, we need to
We
go
really do. Like
check
Rob's
it
in
out."
serious trouble right now, guys. Like for real. Like somebody asked the question, where is Rob? Why has he not given his own statement when Mike was able to
Damn.
give his, Brad was able to give his? They did the Zane Lowe interview. Like he should at least be able to say, I'm not doing this and here's why. Even if it's not, every detail, we need to know if he's okay. So, when it comes to the performances, that Joe was at the bottom, Colin was right there, Dave was in the middle or Mike was in the middle because Mike is just Mike. I have thoughts about Mike. I have feelings about Mike, but yeah, there's no doubt Uncle Mike's on stage, which kind of gives me concern because it's like, okay, well, if this is just Mike now and he's acting this way, then I guess Mike back then was just Mike then. It's the same guy.
Yeah.
So it kind of
You
bothers me, the
thought you knew
consistency there.
somebody better than you did, maybe. It was just
Absolutely.
yeah.
And then for me, it was like right above him was Emily, because I was like, she did improve, and in a 2-hour show singing these songs is tough, but like she still didn't crack it. I don't think she made it, so to speak,
Yeah.
but I do think she did significantly better. I'm not cruel or close-minded enough to not be able to understand how hard it is to perform.
Yeah.
I get it. And then above that was Dave, because Dave's just a solid bass player. He's always been a solid bass player, even if I don't like it when he speaks. And then there's, um, Alex at the top. And I think, did I miss anybody? There was like one other person in between those two, and maybe, but
No, I
like,
don't think so.
then that was my total order. It's pretty close. Maybe I said something differently, but it was pretty close to what I said during my live stream. And I don't know. It's just every show is so expensive.
Yeah.
It's
No,
like
that's hard.
they easily make like 5 mil, but like you also build your production around cost. So you bet your ass they're not out there playing anything that's going to lose them money,
Yeah.
right? They're
This
not.
has
They're
been a
not going to do
well-oiled
that.
machine for several years, so they do have the touring life down and whatnot, and, I mean, of
Well,
course, it all
even
goes back to money,
it
it's
all comes back to money. Like Mike would say, he said, "Well, this all came together randomly." But
no.
how is it that League of Legends is holding their world championship and a song that isn't even streaming yet and has only been played once, and that was at the last stop on their tour in Germany, is the official anthem for that video game event?
Wow.
You
I
don't.
mean,
You
yeah,
just don't. It just doesn't
no,
happen.
this has been a long business machine being sold, and they probably wanna buy new mansions, they gotta keep profiting, they gotta keep doing
Dude,
it,
Mike Shinoda's worth $65 million.
wow.
everybody in the band except for Dave and Chester and $10+ million, if not multiple tens of millions of dollars. And that's just what's reported to the internet.
Yeah.
So including, I imagine, what they're investing in, what they're not reporting to the media, things that might be a bit more private. So these are people who know the industry, they know the business.
And they don't really need the money though. Like they're not starving to continue to tour.
We should go back to Christner because, to that conversation, because what happened was in November of last year, so November 2023, Kyle Christner litigated against the label Machine Shop Records, distribution Warner Music Group, and the band itself, Linkin Park.
Okay.
So he went after the whole machine. Okay. But here's the thing. He had, like I said, there were 2 moments in time where he could have litigated for that credit and royalty that he believed he deserved. Those periods were 3 years each. Once when the album came out, when they got the contract and they went big. So like 1999 to like 2002, right before Meteora. And then the 2020 era with the box set. So when they released the Hybrid Theory box set, they released a bunch of music that was Kyle's that they didn't credit him on and didn't give him royalties for. So an ex Linkin Park manager, who I assume would be the Hybrid Theory Meteora manager, Rob McDermott, who wishes to remain unnamed, but definitely at this point should be named. It could not be him, but there are only so many people in a band's history, right? Unless you have really bad management, but there was a solid management for like 2 albums. And this unnamed band manager went to Kyle. So Kyle didn't start this on his own.
Okay. This was the seed kind of planted.
He was moved toward that conclusion.
Okay.
By an ex-manager of the band, a former manager of the band.
What's fascinating me too is how many managers have so much pull on the band and I've seen managers lead to deaths in certain bands of people.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like it is wild.
I have raised a lot of questions around why management in Chester's life has not answered certain questions about his death that need to be answered and should have been answered right away. Like why his ride share that morning was changed by 4 hours.
That's weird.
He was supposed to be out of the house by 4:30. He was out of the house by 9, but he was dead by then. Why there weren't certain official statements made on behalf of the band and management at the time. And so many other things that are questionable. Like that's a whole thing we can go into. But with Kyle Christner, it's really important to talk about him because he was somebody who was pointed in the direction of this dirty action. Is very, very much like a malpractice that is extreme. I mean, this is the beginning of the band. Okay. Sorry, my cats are about to go at it. He's trying out the cat tower for the first time. And she's over here like, what the fuck are you doing?
I love getting a new kitten. It's so fun.
Yeah, you can watch him. Come here. Come over here.
I have a tuxedo.
You can sit with me. It's okay. Yeah, he's a little tuxedo cat.
No way. Are you serious?
Yeah, he's kind of smoky. He's got like white, black, and then like a weird gray layer that goes out to his tail. So like his tail's all gray and striped, but his like body is like black and white. So he's very tuxedo.
Princess Marshmallow Cake, and I love tuxedos. Like they're my favorite.
Oh, is that the name?
Princess Marshmallow Cake. Yeah.
My cat.
Oh wait, it blinked out. What's your cat's name?
My cat's name is Taki.
Oh, do you like Takis?
Well, we do. But my partner was like, maybe if I get a cat named Taki, I'll stop eating them.
No, I like them, but my stomach hurts the next day and I can't stop eating them.
We kind of like, it's kind of like drinking the poison so you can be like immune to it. We have many that we really don't feel it anymore, but we know that it's not good to have that much.
The Red 40 is eating at my stomach, but I can't stop eating them. And I'm just like,
it's my blood now.
Well, thanks, dude. Thank you so much for stopping by. And I didn't know it was going to be almost an hour and 43 minutes. I'm sorry. I took like so much. Oh,
no, it's okay. I do long talks like this too. And
I love that.
Before we finish, we should really circle down on that Kyle thing because it kind of shows how dirty the band is, with, because there's more to it. So he didn't just litigate, he got thrown out of court.
Whoa.
So the amount of songs that the original, the former manager was like, hey, you have like at least, I think it was 9 songs on this album, on this box set, the Meteor box set from 2020. So he's not even talking about the original release. They're talking about the box set that was just released to cultivate that nostalgia, to
Yeah.
capitalize on Linkin Park. And so he did. And by the way, he refused to litigate for 3 additional years. So he's going after them, and it doesn't make sense. So if he's a power hungry jerk who's looking to capitalize or get, on the band, capitalize on the band's success and achieve some kind of clout, it can't be that it can't really be that true, because he had the 3 years at their most successful time back in, early 2000s to capitalize on that. He didn't.
Yeah.
He had 3 years after the 2020 box set to do that, and he didn't. He only did it in November of 2023 because guess what? He found out after closer examination, after apparently 3 years of investigation, or roughly that much time has passed since the box set. So, within 3 years, maybe it was a year, maybe it was 2 years, maybe it was all 3 years he was researching. But when he found out that this was true, that what this manager had said was true, allegedly he went and looked at the rest of the box set. So he studied the box set and some of the other actions of the band to see whether he had any claim to the music, or to even see what they were doing.
Yeah.
And what it turned out to be was that they had said that they were going to retrack his bass parts for the Hybrid Theory EP released to the Linkin Park Underground fan club back in 2000. But they didn't do that. That was his bass playing on the EP. So the EP version of Hybrid Theory on the box set is his. They took his name off of it, and they didn't tell him. That is true. He found in total he had 24 songs he produced and performed on that they did not give him credit for or royalties.
Wow.
So he litigated against the band, the label, and distribution. Well, he got thrown out of court by Linkin Park. But their grounds for dismissal, they had 4 grounds for dismissal, and they were all pretty much just like some of them were standard, like, well, we're past that legal limit, so we're just not going to acknowledge him. Kind of, but then they also kind of gaslit him. So they're saying that he showed up with open-ended statements about what he was and wasn't deserved. But it's very clearly reported that he knew very well that he had 24 songs specifically that he needed credit and royalties on. So that was one of their grounds for dismissal, was the open-ended statement.
Yeah.
Which I disagree with. I don't think that's possible. I don't think you can litigate against entities that big. I mean, Warner Music is one of the biggest entities in the world. They're in music. Like, you're not going to get anything across the table if you don't have a true claim.
Definitely.
Linkin Park especially, because they have such interesting practices, but they're obviously not going to let anybody talk bad about them, let anybody talk about against the mainstream narrative. They're definitely not going to allow anybody to drive a narrative against them. And so there was that grounds. The grounds was also the limitation period. They said, well, the statute of limitation states 3 years. He had 2 different opportunities to do that. He's not doing that now, so no. They also said that there were 2 other reasons. I'm not fresh on them right now, but there were 2 other reasons. There's one more that's really important. It was that, he had repudiated the royalties and
he signed a contract where he wasn't going to receive them, or what is that?
Well, no, they're saying that for 20 years he rejected them.
Why would anyone reject money? That's just
why would Kyle Christner, this guy accused of being a money hungry jackass, litigating at one of the most popular times in Linkin Park history, right before their big comeback, and the release of the Greatest Hits album, by the way, because Paper Cuts came out after litigation. This litigation happened in between Meteora box set release and the Paper Cuts Greatest Hits release.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so,
it doesn't add up for sure. But I didn't even know. I thought I was going to get a little bit of information. My brain just exploded with so much.
And there's so much more than that. There's so much more than that.
I'm going to have to watch your lives now. After this, I'm literally going to go to your YouTube
it's like
and
a podcast.
add you. And I just found you on Instagram. So I found you on the ground.
All my highlights on Instagram, they're all basically live streams. They're like, I call them like multimedia collages, but they're done in real time. So I have all of those there with a bunch of different evidence. There's a ton of things going on right now. This is not just it. This is not it. It's
We
not
got to
only
tell everyone to
this.
follow you to stay up to date with the behind the scenes and what's currently going
No,
on.
for real, because I'm the only one reporting on it.
Yeah, you're like a
And
soap opera hub too. I'm fascinated. I'm
yeah,
like, what
thank
is
you.
going on?
I am,
Like,
because there's so much crazy, random, stupid stuff going on all the time. It's such easy stuff to avoid, but they don't want that. They just they want what they want. And what's really interesting about that, close that window real quick, please. There's a huge like wasp type thing that just crawled in through the window, and we have 2 cats, so I gotta close it.
oh, not good.
But yeah, so Kyle Christner was actually dismissed out of court. There was Lincoln Park it was only Lincoln Park management. It wasn't him. Kyle has no say in this. If you go read any of the articles I posted on my Instagram and my posts, he did not say anything. The only people who had anything to say about the situation at the end was Lincoln Park legal team. That's it.
That
And
had
they
to
said
have
they
been an
reached
NDA or some
amicable.
No, there's some kind of silencing
Yeah.
going on there for
so
sure. Oh, you got silenced. Oh, you're still quiet.
Still quiet.
There we go.
I actually was silenced. Thank you for saying that.
You got silenced.
But it wasn't just my microphone.
Yeah.
I'll leave it there. But yes, with the Kyle Christner thing, he has to have been, one, he was thrown out of court, but 2, they're saying it was amicable and he has had no say on it. So it's kind of like the Rob situation where they're saying it's an amicable thing, but Mike's the only one speaking for Rob.
Yeah.
They said it's amicable, but Lincoln Park is the only one speaking for Chris. And it turned out that, he's just kind of disappeared. And that litigation period was from November 20. Let me see. It was like late November or mid-November. And it was officially finished, like concluded on April 1st of this year, on April Fool's.
Wow. That's such a long time.
How funny is that?
Date.
Yeah. What a crazy date. And then right after that is when they started, hyping up the machine.
Yeah.
And
they're like, we finished off this and now we're doing this project. And
they don't want me talking about Kyle Christner. As soon as I talked about Kyle Christner, Mike Shinoda, who had been stalking me on my follows, he follows me just not to watch me. He followed me when I started talking. He unfollowed me. He followed me again. And he never is caught watching things in real time. But once you get past the 24-hour limit, you can't see who sees your stories. And all of my stories are highlights. So he's definitely been looking at me. He's definitely been watching on some level.
He's like the hot ex-girlfriend that's still stalking you.
Or the weird drunk uncle who keeps coming to the function and you keep asking everybody not to let him in because he makes everybody uncomfortable and he thinks he's entitled to things. And he stands there and he watches. And then as soon as I talked about Kyle, it didn't matter about me talking about post-traumatic and how he has become a whitewashed colonial and how he has groomed his audience from a very young age to take advantage of them and their nostalgia, and how, he's just been lying through his teeth. That didn't bother him. Me calling him a sellout didn't bother him. But the second that I mentioned Kyle Christner, he unfollowed me. Within a couple of days, he restricted
obviously,
me.
where there's smoke, there's fire. There's some kind of strange situation.
And then I couldn't tag him anymore. He restricted me. So he unfollowed me. He restricted me. I couldn't tag him in anything I was posting anymore. Oh. And then his wife did the same thing. And
did I tag him today on this?
Yeah, why not? Yeah, give him some love. Yeah.
I'll
give Uncle Mike a little tap on the shoulder. Hey, buddy. Yeah, just because you are acting like we don't exist doesn't mean we don't exist.
I'm gonna get off.
So yeah, I was blocked. So I'm blocked by Johan. Blocked by both Anna and Mike Shinoda. Now I'm blocked by Colin. So that's like, there's 3 members of Lincoln Park who have blocked me, and they don't want to talk about Kyle. So it's all very interesting.
They say if you're blocked, though, you got to be doing something right because you're cool enough to get blocked.
That's what I'm saying, right?
You know what I mean?
Yeah, you have to be cool enough. And that's it. I just kind of want to end it. I just kind of want to end all of this on this kind of thought of like, wait, they do work in deception. Like, I'll tie them back to the Transformers franchise because they loved it so much. These are Decepticons at work. They transform themselves into passing street vehicles. They're like, look, it's just Mike, it's just Dave, it's just Joe, it's just Emily. But in reality, there's this very serious, like, otherworldly threat behind all of it because they're erasing Chester. They're ignoring the family. That's me. They're ignoring the investigation that I'm carrying out into my father's death and myself as well. They don't care about the mental health aspect. They've proven they want to throw that away. They are supporting the Church of Scientology. They very clearly are eating their words, and that they have been planning this for years, and they have all these brand deals. And I mean, again, you can't have a brand deal with a song that isn't streaming unless you're privileged to do that.
This has been a well-oiled machined and planned out for a long time.
And that's it. That's all I got to say, is that this is weird.
Well, thank you.
Thank you for having
Boku or
me.
Jamie,
This is
both of
awesome.
them. Thank you so much for coming by Stefs Rock Show. I'm sorry if it was a lot for you to relive, but thank you for all this like valuable information to help people make their own decision about the band and what they want to do or support or not support. So thank you so much. And I wish you the best and positive affirmations.
Yeah, thank you. It's been wonderful to talk to you. Your energy is very gentle, and these questions have been fun. And yeah, I appreciate the conversation always. It's never hard for me to talk about it. It's just hard for me to do it for 30 days in a row.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So,
take a break,
no,
take a breather,
that.
go on a hike in nature or something.
I'm on hiatus right now. So
Okay,
I'm making time for these kinds of conversations and actually doing exactly that, going out into the forest and
play with the kitten. Playing with
the cat. Yeah.
Good idea. Yeah.
You got to get some of that childish energy in your sphere when it gets too serious. So
yeah, definitely. All right. Well, thank you.
Thank you.